Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow, both by Orson Scott Card, are different tellings of the same story. Ender's Game is from the perspective of Ender Wiggin, the child hero who battled aliens to save the human race, while Ender's Shadow is from the perspective of Bean, a soldier in Ender's army. Ender was trained from age 6 to defeat aliens called the Formics, more commonly known to the children as the Buggers. Genetically altered super genius Bean served under him, keeping track of practice battles with his perfect memory and strategic skills. They played only a series of games, first against each other in a zero-gravity game, similar to laser tag, and then, again, commanding ships controlled by computers. Their final exam, an invasion sequence, showed simulations of the Bugger homeworld. The Buggers resemble ants, so they live in hives and have queens controlling individual Buggers like hands and feet. In the simulation, Ender blew up all the queens in a devastating planet-destroying explosion. But it wasn't a simulation. These children had just committed xenocide, saving Earth from invasion. When he finds out, Ender goes catatonic. The reason he was able to beat the Buggers after decades of invasion wasn't that he had a perfect memory like Bean, but that he had perfect empathy with the Buggers. He could see what they were going to do, but also felt every ounce of suffering they felt when they were extinguished. So when he finally woke up, ridden with guilt, he wrote a book called Speaker for the Dead. He told the story of dead Buggers so they could be remembered. And then, he went to one of the Bugger worlds and found the last Bugger hive. In it was a larval queen, hibernating, waiting for Ender to find them. Ender dedicated the rest of his life to traveling around space, finding a world where the Buggers could finally live in peace. For me, the first question that comes to mind after reading these stories is, was it really ethical to make children commit mass genocide? At first glance, it seems like an obvious no, because they're just kids. Maybe yes, because it saved the human race from invasion and our extinction. But I think that the usage of children as soldiers isn't really such a far-fetched idea. In the real world, we have military schools and JROTC, which may not allow the kids to actually fight, but it allows them to be trained. In Ender's Game, the kids were never actually put in danger. All the commanding they did was in a remote space station. It's the same as reading a kid's paper and using that to determine your strategy. A little unconventional, sure, but not unethical. No, the morality of Ender's Game really comes into question when you look at the matter of consent. Sure, they all signed the forms to let them be trained to be soldiers and fight battles, but kids were never aware that they were actually killing. They never gave informed consent since they were all lied to about it being a game. Ender only consented to commanding those battles because he thought it wasn't real. If he had been informed, it's safe to assume he would not have given his consent. Bean, on the other hand, was told it's real and did know that his actions would result in many deaths. Using his tactics of command would have been ethical, since he gave informed consent to being a real soldier. Speaking of Bean, his genetic alteration was fascinating to read about, even in fiction. Basically, a scientist stole 23 eggs and altered genes that made the babies stop growing when they reached adulthood. Bean would have been called with the rest of the babies when they were infants, but he was smart enough to escape and hide in the toilet tank because of those altered genes. See, Bean's brain never stopped growing, so he never stopped getting smarter. He was incredibly small at first, but when he grew into adulthood, he would grow so large that his heart would fail. The scientist that created him said he would only live to 20 years old. Bean would now surely die, but die like a god, knowing good and evil. Orson Scott Card.